Oh, thank God you're here.
Oh, hey Chloe, why have you called me in today? Is Lightning okay?
Actually, Lightning hasn't been doing so well lately. We were out for a ride the other day when he suddenly collapsed. I didn't see what happened as I was a bit shaken, but my husband said that he was yawning and trembling as he was recovering. I thought maybe he had just lost his footing or something because he was absolutely fine afterwards, and he's a bit of a clumsy horse. But then yesterday he was yawning again, moving stiffly, and his hindquarters were twitching. He's not usually like this. Normally he's got plenty of energy. It's so sad to see him like this.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'll try my best to get him back to normal. What have you been feeding Lightning?
He eats a mixed diet of pasture, molasses, grain mix, and loosened chaff. He's such a pig, he just scoffs it all down at once. What do you think could have caused his issues?
Well, at first, I was thinking that he might be experiencing exertional rhabdomyolysis, which is a type of muscle breakdown caused by heavy physical exercise. But considering that Lightning appeared normal after the episode, I'm not so sure anymore. It also doesn't seem to be associated with exercise, which is bizarre. How about I get a blood test done, and we'll see how that turns up. I would also like to get a muscle biopsy so I can take a closer look at his muscle under the microscope, if that's okay with you, just so that I can rule out exertional rhabdomyolysis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, as I said, he was acting strange just yesterday, and that was just in the paddock, so I don't think it's related to exercise. And you can take whatever test you need. I just want anything to help my Lightning.
Alright, well, I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Hello?
Hi Chloe, I've got Lightning's results back from the lab.
Oh, that was quick. What did they say?
So the blood test shows mild elevation of creatinine kinase and aspirate aminotransferase, as well as serum potassium levels above 20% the normal range.
So, what does that mean?
Well, increased muscle activity, such as with Lightning's muscle twitches, can lead to increased levels of creatinine kinase and aspirate aminotransferase, as these are muscle enzymes. Most interesting thing though is the high potassium levels, which could be caused by his diet.
We've never had an issue with this diet with our other horses before. What about the muscle biopsy?
Well, if you take a look at the email I sent you, you can see what the difference would be in a muscle biopsy between a horse with exertional rhabdomyolysis and a normal horse. If you see the darker spots in the picture on the right are towards the edges of the pink, which is healthy muscle. However, in the left picture, they are in the middle of the pink muscle. Lightning's biopsy had completely normal results though.
Well, I'm glad those results are normal, but I still want to know what's wrong with my Lightning. Do you know what else it could be? Are there any other tests that we can do to find out what's wrong?
My next suspicion would be hyperkalemic periodic paralysis, which could have caused the symptoms that you described. If you could send me in a sample of Lightning's hair, I can send it to the lab to find out for sure. Taking a hair sample is easy and non-invasive, and testing it is cheaper than a blood test. So once that's all packaged up, I'll send it to the lab and get back to you.
Alright, I'll get right onto that. Is there anything else I should do in the meantime?
A high potassium diet can make this disease worse. However, we won't know for sure until we get the results back.
Okay, please let me know as soon as you get the results.
Will do. Talk soon.
Hello, Australian Genetics Laboratory. Dr. McBain speaking.
Hello, this is Dr. Alvad from the University of Queensland Veterinary Clinic. I was just ringing in to order an equine hyperkalemic periodic paralysis test for one of my clients.
Oh, too easy. Once we get your sample, we'll just run the sample to a PCR, then a restriction fragment length polymorphism test.
Oh, jeez. I've forgotten all about my genetics from vet school. Do you want to run over how those things work again?
I guess I can. Since we know what sequence we're detecting, the testing is very simple and doesn't require sequencing of genomes and all that. First, we have to make copies of the sequence using PCR so the gene is in high enough proportion to detect. PCR is a three-step process, the first of which is heating for denaturation of the DNA to separate the strands. Then, oligonucleotide primers bind to sequences at each end of the sequence. A Taq polymerase is then used to fill in the blank between each primer, making a copy of the sequence. This cycle is then repeated over and over until we have millions of copies of the sequence. Then once we have enough, we'll test using RFLP. This test uses 3 restriction enzymes which cleave DNA at a target sequence. The first and second enzymes cleave the DNA before and after the target sequence, while the third targets the mutated sequence, or point mutation in our case. The enzyme is coded to the normal sequence, and hence, if the horse has the normal gene, the enzyme will cleave the chain and produce 2 fragments. However, if the mutation is present, the enzyme will be unable to bind and will leave the large intact fragment, allowing us to diagnose your patient. RFLP will also determine whether Lightning is heterozygous or homozygous for the mutated allele, as the sequence will remain whole if he is homozygous. We'll then run it through some electrophoresis gel to separate the different size fragments so we can visualise it all. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds great. Lightning and I readily await your call.
Cheers, mate.
Too easy.
Let's switch sides for the next one.
Hello, Dr. Levy here.
Hey Dr. Ravier, we've run your sample. Turns out Lightning does have the mutation that causes HYPP.
Ah, well that's no good. What does this mean for him and my client?
Well, first of all, the disease is autosomal dominant, so the horse is no longer desirable as breeding stock, as it has a chance of passing on this condition. Otherwise, there is some good news in that Lightning is just heterozygous for this condition, so only 50% of his sodium channels are defective. So, Lightning's susceptibility to hyperkalemic attacks is much lower along with the severity of these episodes.
Alright, well I guess I'll get back to my client now. Thank you.
All good, mate. See you later.
See ya. I had to improvise, there's nothing there.
Hello, Chloe speaking.
Hey Chloe, it's Dr. Levan. So the test came back positive for hyperkalemic periodic paralysis, otherwise known as HYPP. This means that Lightning's muscle nerves get excited much easier than normal, which is why Lightning collapsed on the ground the first time and experienced trembling and twitching.
Oh, I guess that makes sense, but how did my horse get HYPP? Is that some sort of disease? Should I be concerned for my other horses?
No. HYPP is a genetic disorder which Lightning has inherited from one of his parents. He's what's considered a heterozygote, which means that he inherited the genetic mutation from one of his parents, not both. This is crucial because if he had inherited it from both his parents, then his symptoms would be even more severe. What the mutation does is that it makes his nerves easily excitable, and if the individual is homozygous for this genetic disease, meaning that it inherited from both his parents, then the nerves would be even more excitable. If Lightning had been homozygous, his hyperkalemic attacks would be so severe up to the point where it could lead to death.
Is there anything I can do to stop Lightning having these episodes?
The most important form of prevention is through dietary management. I recall that Lightning was being fed lucerne and molasses grain mix, which both have high potassium levels, especially when fed all at once. This high potassium diet is what ended up triggering Lightning's hyperkalemic attack, which then led to him collapsing on the ground. So I suggest that you switch to a diet which has lower potassium content and trickle feed. That way you prevent Lightning's potassium levels from going high enough to trigger another episode. Trickle feeding alone might be enough to help maintain low enough potassium levels in his blood. Another means of alleviating high potassium is to regularly exercise Lightning, as it's another way to help keep Lightning's potassium levels stable, as potassium is one of the electrolytes lost in sweat. Lastly, giving Lightning access to a large paddock with pasture. That way a portion of his diet consists of pasture, which help regulate his potassium intake, as pasture has high water content, and so Lightning will be unlikely to consume large amounts of potassium in a short period of time.
That doesn't seem so bad. We have a lovely paddock out the back which Lightning loves to run around in, so it shouldn't be an issue. Are there any other ways I can prevent Lightning from collapsing again? Maybe some drugs?
There are a few drugs actually that have been used to prevent any more episodes of paralysis if you were looking to go down that path. All these drugs work to stabilize potassium levels by increasing renal excretion of potassium.
Ah, okay. I might look into that in the future if Lightning ever experiences another episode. One last thing, I was wondering if by any chance I would still be able to use Lightning for breeding, as I know you mentioned this was a genetic disease?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, Lightning's a heterozygote for this genetic mutation, which is an autosomal dominant disease. So if the dam was a heterozygote, Lightning would only have a 25% chance of having an offspring that doesn't have the mutation. 50% chance that the offspring are heterozygotes just like Lightning, and 25% chance that the offsprings are homozygous. This means that their symptoms would be much more severe than Lightning's and could die from one of their episodes of paralysis. If you were to mate Lightning with a mare that wasn't a heterozygote nor diseased, then there would still be a 50% chance of the offspring being heterozygotes. So my professional opinion would be to avoid mating Lightning. That way we could prevent increasing the population of HYPP horses.
I guess that makes sense. There's not really much point breeding horses if they are likely to have HYPP. It'd be cruel and probably wouldn't go too well in the sales. Thanks for all your help. I'll be sure to implement all the strategies you suggested. That way Lightning can live the rest of his life without having any more episodes.
All the best for you and Lightning.